Hello, everyone. Thank you to Sebastian for that review, so I have to do a lot less work. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about my work. Ooh, I need this. On modeling dark energy survey cluster cosmology, cluster cosmology with simulation-based forward modeling. So optical selection. Okay, well, never mind. So here is a plot that Sebastian briefly showed before. This is showing structure constraints from DES compared to Planck in black. So you're probably familiar with this. Green is 3x2 from DES year 1, and blue is DES year 1 red mapper, so optically selected clusters, using a standard approach to cluster cosmology. So clearly there's something going wrong with the clusters. You have a pretty significant tension internal to DES, and you have roughly 6 sigma tension with Planck. So here's what happens if we take the same exact clusters, identical cluster selection method that produced the blue contour, and change the modeling with the approach that we've developed that relies on simulations and forward modeling. That's the orange. So we come into internal consistency with 3x2 within DES year 1, and then of course we also have a lot less inconsistency with Planck. Okay, so what's wrong with the optical clusters? So I've drawn a cartoon to sort of heuristically describe this. You can imagine 2 optical clusters, one that is sort of well-behaved and one that is misbehaving in 2 different ways. So when you do optical cluster selection, you're essentially looking for projected overdensities of red sequence galaxies, and you have photometric redshifts to distinguish their distance from the cluster, the true cluster system, right? So you can kind of have a 2 halo and a 1 halo effect. So what you want is to find a nice spherical looking cluster with an uncontaminated sightline. But what can happen is that you can have a 2 halo effect, or you have multiple lower mass systems, lower membership systems that are conspiring to appear to be in projection one larger mass system. And you can also have a 1 halo effect where you have, you can see that in this cartoon I've intentionally drawn these clusters to be ellipsoidal with respect to the line of sight relative to this thing which is more circular / spherical. And so here you're losing membership in the outskirts, whereas here you're sort of up, you're fully weighting the total membership. And so the issue with the optical clusters then is that these kind of effects can produce scatter in the mass richness relation, which is also correlated with the large scale environment. So this kind of geometric setup of these systems is more likely to happen in unusual environments, high density environments. You can imagine that there's a filament connecting these 2 things, right? And that's quite complicated to describe. So here is just another way to quantify exactly what the issue is. If you're familiar with assembly bias, you can kind of think of this as the relative bias with respect to richness. So this is from a simulation, the Buzzard simulation. So it's a simulation of galaxy photometry that RedMapper has been run on, the selection algorithm in DES. Here you have the lensing, either in terms of delta sigma or sigma, the observed, which means the lensing conditioned on richness and mass, and then the expected, which is the lensing conditioned on mass, such that the mass distribution that the richness selection produces is exactly reproduced in the denominator. And so you can see that this blue curve does not lie in 1, and that's the issue. So the environment is sourcing scatter in the mass richness relation, and it also is producing a correlated scale-dependent bias in the lensing profiles. So it's essentially breaking this one-to-one mapping that you really want to have between the underlying mass of the clusters and their lensing profiles, which you use for calibration. So, Here I just want to say, no need to dwell on any particular panel, but this is just to show that this is a generic problem across richness going from left to right and redshift going from top to bottom. Okay. So why does this have to be addressed with simulation-based modeling? So we're interested in the cluster lensing. So essentially we have to predict the cluster matter cross correlation. And so we have to predict the cluster bias. So you can write down a halo model type expression of this kind. And so the issue that projection effect produces is that this mass richness relation is now a function of other environmental parameters. And so you actually have to marginalize over some unknown set of these. And so we don't really know how to quantify the salient features of the cosmic web that affect the selection. And even if we did, we'd have to actually have nice analytic forms of all of these expressions with respect to this higher dimensional space. So the way that we can address this is just implicitly answer all these questions using simulations. So this is sort of the, the assembly bias relations. These are, of course, by construction reproduced in the simulations. And then if you can properly put down the galaxies that source the selection of the optical clusters, you also implicitly get this as well. Okay, so here I will just outline our approach. If you're interested in any of steps besides 1 and 2, then please ask me, but it's mostly details. The optical cluster specific steps are 1 and 2. Okay, so step 1 is to actually select the clusters. And we have to do that by populating the galaxies that the clusters are selected from in our simulations. And so we do this with HOD, this HOD standard framework. And so we generate our mock galaxy catalogs. We use what we know about the phenomenology of optical cluster selection and put down a cylinder at the location of all these halos. The aperture is selected to be consistent with red mapper. And now the redshift kernel is something that you can marginalize over. And so here you get a number count of the membership in the cylinder. And you can abundance match that with the richness that you observe in the data. So one word on this abundance matching, what you're doing here is you're taking the cluster sample, which is defined by richness in the data, and you're matching the cluster density to the, not the richness, but the cylinder count in the actual simulation. And what this does is it relaxes our modeling requirements. Now we only have to predict the richness value, or sorry, the ranking, not the actual numerical value. So you do this and you can make your cluster selection, your simulation, cross-correlate with the particles, do all the other steps that I listed. That's very slow. You have to speed this up with some kind of emulation. So here, just to say that we generate a training set that reasonably covers the data, which is shown in the point. So this is a particular redshift bin. Each of these colors is a richness bin in DES year 1. And then we speed the prediction of the signal using Gaussian process. So here we're just showing the accuracy of this emulator framework relative to in the bands, the uncertainty from the data itself. Okay, and when you do this, you can fit to the lensing profiles in DES year 1. So that's what I'm showing here. So each one of these panels is a redshift bin with richness bins going from red, the highest richness, down to brown, which is lowest richness. So there's two things I want to point out. The first is that we're pushing to quite low richness, and we're still getting a good fit. And we also are capable of pushing to fairly small scales. Good. So what does this look like in terms of cosmology? So here we have lambda CDM constraints relative to other optical cluster experiments, to multi-wavelength cluster experiments. And here we have the same relative to different lensing surveys, full shape clustering, and CMB secondary. So really what I just want to say is that we're seeing relative consistency with the literature in terms of growth of structure, and our constraints are competitive in terms of precision. Okay, so here's just to summarize this. So this framework can consistently describe the DES year 1 lensing and abundances down to low richness and small scales. This produces tight constraints on cosmic structure, and I didn't really make a big deal out of it, but if you care about the SA tension, or in 2.6 sigma tension with Planck, it's not that significant. But so the last thing I want to say is that with this emulator framework, provided that you have the simulations that vary W not WA, you can also do inference in that space. And so here we're combining what we've done, so the process that we've done with this emulator, we're combining with external data coming from Planck, DESI BAO, so this is DR2, and DS 5-year supernova survey. And so this combination of the sort of geometry-only probes is what you get in blue, so you've probably seen this many times. And when we combine with clusters, which are not capable of constraining the dynamical dark energy on their own, you get this red contour. So we are recovering lambda CDM with this method, and then we're actually simultaneously relaxing the Hubble tension, which is interesting. Okay, I'll just summarize here and take questions.
Thank you, Andres. Yes, we have time for a few questions.
Can you give some insight in the last point, why it's pushing it towards lambda CDM?
Great question, yeah. So I only had 10 minutes, so I thought I might not be able to get through this, but I expected someone would want to know. So there's two reasons. So part of it is a preference. The clusters have a preference for relatively lower omega m. So here you can see These are the sort of, so we call it geometry only. This is Planck, BAO, and the supernova, and the points now are color-coded by omega m. So you see, if you want to pull away from lambda CDM, you need to go to relatively higher values of omega m, greater than 0.3. And then, at the same time, if you, actually, sorry, let me just go back, right? If you define the direction along this degeneracy line, you call that dW, right? At the same time, you find that the clusters actually constrain that fairly well, at least within the prior that's set by the simulations. So you have a degeneracy between dW and omega m. This is what you see in the geometry-only data, and then the clusters are coming in at lower omega m, so you're pulling along this degeneracy direction, and you also prefer a dW closer to 0.
What about the Hubble tension?
The Hubble tension, so that, I think, is most, so a lot of this is just pulling along the theta star degeneracy direction, going to lower omega m, essentially. Right? Yeah.
We have time for another question. So okay.
All right. Very nice talk. So if you wanted to apply this to, I don't know, DSCR3 or whatever the next sample, what is the things you need to retrain?
So in principle, nothing, but in practice, the Y3 data vector I've gotten from Sebastian is slightly different. So, no, it's okay. It's better, actually, I think. So, I mean, the emulator you train is specific to binning, also in Y3, rather than sort of having the entire source sample correlated with the clusters. We're now doing tomographic source lens pairs, so we have to retrain in that sense. But fortunately, the cluster samples already exist, so actually this is really just a matter of rerunning the lensing. So I think usually covariance is the main headache, so I'm pretty confident that'll be solved like within 1 to 2 weeks, but yeah.
Great, thanks.
From the emulator perspective, not much, basically.
Well, on this optimistic note, I think.
Well, we already went through it in Y1, so in principle, if you just get the Y3 source distribution, yeah. Also, they're shape noise dominated. I mean, they're kind of relatively easy covariances, let's say. I shouldn't say that, because, but.
Any other question? No? If not, let's thank Andres again.